Ситуация очень интересная, специфическая. Значит, на днях нас ждет очень серьезная операция. Эта операция вообще сама по себе, она призвана полностью поменять ход войны.
According to the latest data, all units on the line of the Kursk front have gone on a large-scale offensive, and the movement forward is going in all directions, and with good speed. From the front line, there are reports that Ukrainian militants are rapidly running out of ammunition and supplies. According to the materials of radio interceptions, cases of refusal to perform tasks not only by privates, but also by officers of the armed forces of Ukraine have become more frequent.
Вот такая их хуйня, блядь. Еще 5 сейчас привезет пленных.
Almost all NATO equipment has been destroyed. There are signs that scattered units of the armed forces of Ukraine are beginning to drag themselves to Sudzha without an order.
Жена и двое детей.
At the moment, it is almost impossible for surrounded Ukrainian militants to get out. There are not many options: to break through a solid wall of fire, to surrender or die. The command of the armed forces of Ukraine has no reserves for unblocking the bag. There is no communication with the units either. It comes to the point that some units of the armed forces of Ukraine began negotiations on surrender, offering the latest and untouched samples of Western weapons as a ransom, including new types of UAVs, a satellite encryption system, and EBW and recently transferred armored vehicles. In any case, the armed forces of Ukraine have only 2 red pills in their hand, both when retreating, the probability of which decreases every minute, and when destroying the Kursk group. Zelensky receives a blow from which he is already guaranteed not to recover.
Ні, нас цікавлять наші території українські, і в будь-якому випадку Курська область дасть нам можливість.
The Kursk adventure, as it appears now, was part of the reinforced concrete victory plan of the Ukrainian president, which he presented to British Prime Minister Starmer, and all his brilliant plans for the future were built on it. Now this future will not happen. Some time ago, it was reported that the Russian troops destroyed more than 60,000 Ukrainian soldiers near Kursk. Since then, the calculator has already jammed, and with the repetition of the boiler scenario has occurred in Debaltseve in 2014 and Mariupol in 2022, the score can approach 100,000. This is Zelensky's political and possibly physical death. The brilliant operation led to what was supposed to be a complete defeat. At one time, the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, commenting on Zelensky's hints on options for the exchange of Russian land, said that in the Kursk region, the neo-Nazis operating there is waiting for land without any exchange of area, about 1 meter by 2 and 1.5 meters deep. For tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers who wanted to shoot a TikTok from various villages in Sudzha, this exchange has already taken place successfully. But the Russian soldiers from the front line offer not to stop. They offer a logical option. Since the Kursk operation of the armed forces of Ukraine was so successful and Kiev has so many trump cards in its hands, let now the liberated districts of the Kursk region be transferred back to Russia. But get this, in exchange for the transfer of part of the Ukrainian Sumy region to it. If we change, then in full, our guys deserve it. Show them what an honest Russian exchange is, she said. These were the words from Kirill Strelnikov from Russian media, RIA Novosti, on the Kursk debacle. So today is the second installment of the Kursk collapse, with a focus on the Russian storming of the key logistics town of Sudzha, as well as other recent captures further on the northern flank of the Kursk salient. Near the end, we will have an interesting report from Ukrainian journalist Yuri Butusov on the situation. I ask that you continue to do what you can do to support and keep the show running. In that light, I appreciate all super thanks or PayPal donations. But the best way, by far, to show appreciation for my work and to support alternative media like mine is to join the channel membership, where I post dozens of exclusive analysis, combat footage, and breaking news not shown in mainstream media. In fact, there is a playlist entitled Sneak Peek, which gives you short snippets of the long-form analysis that is available to channel members only. The membership community is growing, and we welcome all new members like this last batch which joined yesterday. So stick around for bonus combat footage at the end, and make sure to watch the membership trailer video in the end screen. And let's get into it.
Ёбаный в рот, ну чё скажете, пацаны, где мы нахуй? В трубе, сука! Труба куда ведет? На Суджу нахуй, это же ёбнуться!
The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said on the evening of March 8th that the assault groups of the Russian armed forces tried to penetrate the gas pipeline into the city of Sudzha in the Kursk region, controlled by Ukrainian troops. Earlier, Ukrainian media and Russian Z channels wrote about it. As reported, the Russian military used the pipe of the Urengoy-Pomary-Uzhgorod gas pipeline for a covert attack through which Russia supplied gas to Europe through the territory of Ukraine until the 1st of January 2025. The diameter of one pipe is 1.4 meters. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, the Russian military moved along the branch of the gas pipeline in order to gain a foothold on the outskirts of Sudzha. But, and here's where the Ukrainian bias comes in. They were timely discovered by aerial reconnaissance units of the air assault forces of the armed forces of Ukraine. In quotations, missile and artillery strikes were carried out on the enemy's manpower. Unmanned systems of various types were used. Currently, the forces of Russian special forces are being identified, blocked, and destroyed. The enemy's losses in the Sudzha area are very high. These were the words of the armed forces of Ukraine. But other media sources like El Arabiya News reports on the situation like this. Russia was storming the town of Sudzha on Sunday after their special forces used the gas pipeline to surprise Ukrainian units as part of a major offensive to eject Ukrainian soldiers from the western Russian region of Kursk, pro-Russian war blogger said. Yuri Butusov, a Ukrainian-born pro-Russian military blogger, said Russian special forces had walked about 15 kilometers along the inside of a major gas pipeline and spent several days in the pipe before surprising Ukrainian forces from the rear near Sudzha. Pro-Russian war blogger Two Majors and a major said a major battle was underway for Sudzha and that Russian forces had surprised Ukrainian soldiers by entering the town via a major gas pipeline. Fighting continued throughout the night in Sudzha, said Podolyak. The fighting did not stop. Another war blogger, Yuri Butusov, said that Ukrainian forces have been moving equipment away from Sudzha, closer to the border. In quotations, at the moment, our units are attacking in the northeastern part of Sudzha and fighting in the area of Lomonosov Street and the industrial zone of Sudzha, Butusov said. But the growing encirclement of the town of Sudzha is not the only concern for the Ukrainian armed forces further up north in the Kursk region. In fact, on other parts of the Kursk front, Russia has liberated 3 additional villages, making a new advance against the Ukrainian invasion force in the area, the Defense Ministry in Moscow announced on Saturday.
Брат, хорошего тебе отпуска.
The villages of Vitrokova, Nikolaevka, and Staraya Torochina are situated on the northernmost tip of the Ukrainian-controlled area in Russia's Kursk region. The settlements are located immediately to the west of the village of Malaya Lokhnia, a major stronghold for the Ukrainian force in the region, and across the eponymous river. The fall of the 3 villages puts the Ukrainian troops holed up in the area in a more precarious position. RT News reports that this week, multiple media reports suggested that Kiev's troops were on the brink of encirclement in the area, with between 6,500 and 10,000 soldiers at risk of being cut off completely. All bridges in the vicinity of Sudzha have reportedly been destroyed, while heavy damage to the road infrastructure is hampering the Ukrainian forces' ability to resupply and potentially withdraw from the area. The Kursk incursion has taken a heavy toll on the Ukrainian military. According to Russian sources, more than 65,500 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or wounded in the area, while some 386 tanks, nearly 300 infantry fighting vehicles, 259 armored personnel carriers and over 2,000 other armored vehicles have been destroyed or captured, according to the Russian military. Yuri Butusov shed some more insight in Russian media Lenta. He said that units of the Russian armed forces are trying to advance to the city center. At the same time, as the military blogger notes, the enemy is resisting, and the resistance is growing. In principle, that's how it should have been, he said. As we remember, during the previous successful breakthroughs of the Russian armed forces in September and October last year, the first day was the most important in terms of achieving the result. Already, on the second day, the Ukrainian enemy's resistance increased sharply, and it was not possible to move it much further, he said. In addition, the command of the armed forces of Ukraine tried to shoot down the soldiers of the Russian army on the highway to Bolsharivka, but this did not bring success. There have been no other counterattacks during the night so far, Podolyak added. Finally, Ukrainian journalist Yuri Butusov gave a very stark but realistic assessment of the Kursk situation as follows. The Ukrainian group, the Ukrainian bridgehead, is very deeply cut by the enemy. I communicate with a lot of fighters, the commanders in this direction, and I can say that the situation in the sanitary zone in the Kursk region is really extremely difficult, of course. This is now the most difficult section of the front. The reason is the very configuration of this bridgehead. Communication is quite limited there. The Russian enemy, realizing that our task is to maintain this zone, came very close from both flanks to our communications. And in fact, if earlier it was said that the control of the communication of the encirclement is when the enemy stands on the road and shoots from a kilometer with too direct aiming, now new military technologies make it possible to take under fire control communications that are more than 5 to 10 kilometers away. And of course, under such fire, it is almost very difficult to rely on such a communication line. The Russian enemy inflicts heavy losses on our lines of communication by attacking its drones, aircraft, artillery. And of course, the maintenance of this sanitary zone, when it is so narrow on the front and is shot from both flanks, is an extremely problematic, expensive story. What our soldiers there in the sanitary zone demonstrate is, as always, where Ukrainian infantry fight, Ukrainian soldiers are mass heroes. However, now the question is whether it is advisable for us to maintain such a bridgehead, which is actually held on the same line of communication, which is under the fire control of the Russian enemy. Constant fire influence, he said. Of course, this is a very important question. I understand that it is now politically unprofitable to say that we have to leave the sanitary zone, that we need some leverage, a demonstration, that we can also negotiate the sanitary zone. But friends, every question in the war has its own pragmatic price. This is the price of the lives of those people who follow the order, the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. I believe that if there are no forces sufficient to take Russian flanks, Russian strike groups under fire control, destroy them. If there are no forces to suppress the work of Russian firearms, and above all, drone units, then of course, only those people who are trying to stand until the end in that area themselves have to stand there. Each operation in war has its own price. If we stand in unfavorable tactical conditions, then I see no need and necessity to lean on the latter just because it is politically important. I know that this situation, which is now not a favorable environment, this wedge that the Russian enemy has trapped us, though narrow, does not mean the encirclement of our troops, he claims. We still have opportunities for connection. There are still opportunities for defense, but the price of continuing this defense is very high. The wedge, of course, is also not stable. Of course, the situation there does not seem to be immediate, nor is it tomorrow or the day after tomorrow that everything will be gone. But the price of holding such tactically unprofitable positions is very high, and the leadership of Ukraine, when giving orders to stay in such a situation, must weigh whether Ukraine can afford to pay the price for such unfavorable tactical conditions with the lives of our soldiers. I believe that the leadership should consider that if there are additional forces and they can be concentrated in order to defeat the Russian enemy, restore the situation, expand the controlled area and improve communication, this should be done immediately. However, if there are no such forces, then I do not see any logic to turn this bridgehead into another Krinky, another counteroffensive at any cost. Therefore, now we will monitor the situation. I will write. Now I will collect even more information, and very soon I will be there to show whether it is possible to have an adequate connection there now, and in what environment, in what conditions Ukrainian soldiers continue to fight now.
Zombie, how was the operation developed? How did it all start? Are you ready?
The so-called flow operation was developed over a long period, more than 3 weeks, and as if in this operation many forces were involved, but not just forces. Enormous measures were undertaken. To go through the pipe, it was necessary to stop the gas supply, pump out the gas, and inject oxygen into the pipe. After that, they began to set up exits to the surface, the so-called accumulators for personnel, bringing in ammunition, food, water, setting up toilets. It took more than 3 weeks, the process of equipping personnel, DSHR veterans, my brigade Vostok, the 30th Regiment, Motorized Rifle Regiment, and the 11th Airborne Brigade that participated in this operation, as well as the AIDA group from the Akhmat Special Forces. We all traveled through this pipe more than 15 kilometers. The advance was made in small groups over 4 days.